Good evening. I'm Kalamazoo Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, and welcome to tonight's Kalamazoo City Commission meeting of Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the city's Facebook page as well as the city's YouTube channel. You can also listen on your phone to the meeting by calling area code 269-552-6425 and entering meeting ID number 922-3448-1476 when prompted. And you can also leave a public comment for tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-226-6573. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kalamazoo Mayor David Anderson.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. You're doing fantastic work taking us through these regular Zoom meetings we've been having for what seems like an eternity now. So thank you. I'm going to officially call this meeting to order of the Kalamazoo City Commission, our Zoom meeting for Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Clerk Borley, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cunningham.
Here in the great city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Hess.
Here in Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Knott.
Here in Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Pradle. Commissioner Pradle? He's here.
Well, we can see he's here. You may not be able to hear.
Commissioner Urban.
Here in Kalamazoo.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Here in Kalamazoo.
Mayor Anderson.
Here in Kalamazoo. Thank you so much, Clerk Borley. Well, we have a special opportunity tonight, and I would say that this is the most positive meeting that we get to have every single year. And it is the meeting where we recognize young people and we recognize adults from a variety of organizations that are recognizing those young people. And this is the meeting we get to have every year that I think does more than anything to give us hope for the future. So I want to really thank everyone for participating in the Zoom style meeting. We usually do it in person, but we have a special set of ceremonies and presentations to go through where a variety of us will get an opportunity to talk about the person that we are recognizing. And our Deputy City Manager Chamberlain will help take us through that. So this is partly also a time when we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And the point of this is the Social Justice Youth Awards tonight. So as part of recognizing Dr. King, the City of Kalamazoo recognizes outstanding youth that are truly living his values and inspiring our community. Despite the pandemic, we are proud to continue that tradition with 9 outstanding young residents, along with Dr. Lewis Walker and the program sponsors: Consumers Energy, Fifth Third Bank, Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents to War, Life EMS, Dr. Betty and Mr. Tony Dennis, Shupan and Sons. So here are the youth awards and the individuals being recognized this evening. The Consumers Energy Social Justice Youth Award is recognizing Ms. Cyan Hollins. The Fifth Third Social Justice Youth Award is recognizing Ms. Cecilia Morales Caballero. The Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents to War Social Justice Youth Award is being given to Mr. Jaylin Johnson. The Life EMS Social Justice Youth Award is being awarded to Mr. August O'Neill. The Lodge Dennis Social Justice Youth Award is being recognized in the person of Miss Sierra Ward. Shupan and Sons Social Justice Youth Award is going to Ms. Kiera Price. And the Dr. Lewis Walker Social Justice Youth Awards 3 of them this year, are going to Ms. Michaela Bolton, Ms. Jamila Clark, and Ms. Maya Daniels. So let's move right into the awards. The first person I'd like to welcome here tonight is Consumers Energy Community Affairs Manager, Derek Noss. Mr. Noss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Diversity is the state of being beautifully different and unapologetically diverse. This is but one of the often repeated axioms of Cyan Hollins, who I am proud to announce as the winner of this year's Consumers Energy MLK Social Justice Youth Award. Cyan has achieved some outstanding accomplishments and is a very inspiring young leader in our community. Her leadership is evident in her diverse experiences, such as the NAACP, Girl Scouts, Mers Tate Explorers, and Mount Zion Baptist Church, logging hundreds of community service hours while serving as a peer mentor, academic tutor, and athlete. A Gull Lake High School student, she has proven to be a standout leader as vice president in the NAACP Act So program, youth advisory board member and writer for the Mers Tate Explorers, a mentee in Big Brothers Big Sisters, and participation in usher and praise dance ministries at Mount Zion Baptist Church. Further, she will make history as 2 young women in the Kalamazoo area to be the first ever Girl Scout Gold Award recipients. I must say personally, this is the highest honor in scouting, and as an Eagle Scout, I am very impressed with this distinction. Her capstone community service project is certainly of note, as she worked with the Kalamazoo Valley Museum to preserve and digitize a collection detailing the history and experience of African Americans. I'll share one more quote. Diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice be heard. It's very reassuring to have leaders like Cyan in the future. I'm just sorry I can't present the award personally this evening. She was nominated by her mentor, Sadie Miles. I'm proud to have Cyan Hollins represent Consumers Energy as this year's MLK Social Justice Youth Award recipient. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Doffs. I really appreciate your words, and congratulations to Ms. Hollins, your recognized Social Justice Youth Award recipient. Really appreciate it. Next, please welcome Community President of Fifth Third Bank, Ronald Four.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of Fifth Third Bank, I am proud to recognize Cecilia Morelos Caballero with a Social Justice Youth Award. Cecilia stands out with her commitment to volunteerism, focused through organizations like Peace Jam, DECA, and the National Honor Society. The list of volunteer activities led by Cecilia is impressive and inspiring. Nominated by Kalamazoo Illinois Noric's economics teacher Sean Bergen, the following quote stood out to us as we evaluated applications. Cecilia can make other students feel good about themselves and bring up their level of productivity using her leadership skills. It is the sign of an incredible leader who is mature and caring. Now that sounds like a skill set that should be honored at this time. So on behalf of all of my colleagues at Fifth Third Bank, I am proud to present this year's Fifth Third Bank Social Justice Youth Award to Cecilia Morelos Caballero. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mr. Four, and thank you to all your colleagues at Fifth Third. And we are honored to be able to recognize as well Ms. Caballero. Next, we move on to the Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents of War, the Social Justice Youth Award, and welcome the presenter of this award, my friend, Steve Senesi. Steve, you are muted. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the Kalamazoo City Commission and my fellow citizens in Kalamazoo. we are pleased and honored to nominate the Social Justice Award to Mr. Jalen Johnson. Mr. Johnson is a senior at Kalamazoo Central High School, and as an 8th grader, he heard a presentation by a Jeter leader. It inspired him to apply for one of the very few competitive positions on the Jeter leader team, of which he has been a member for the past 4 years. In his junior year, he was chosen to join the National Society of High School Scholars. In addition to this academic honor, he is an adroit Giant football team member. Others have recognized his proficiency at the sport, so much as to be offered football scholarships at 6 different universities. As a Jeter leader, he has helped facilitate trunk and treat Halloween events and basketball camp at Charlie's Place, which is a Kalamazoo North Side organization for kids in that neighborhood. For the formation and nurturance of his social justice attitudes, he credits 2 cultural literary artifacts: the play To Kill a Mockingbird, delineating racial inequality, which is a major issue today, but is also known for its warmth and humor, 2 characteristics Jalen utilizes in his leadership style. The other artifact is the movie Schindler's List, depicting not only hatred and genocide, but also having the courage to intervene to save lives. Jalen has taken these lessons to heart. Most of his embracing diversity and leadership activity has taken place at Boys and Girls Club and at Peace House. Peace House is a free after-school and summer program for grammar school and high school students. They work to create peace, have fun, and other support for kids on Phelps Street. Jalen has both mentored and tutored these children with reading, math, history, English, and other extracurricular activities. Peace House is a richly diverse environment. Multiple races, ethnicities, economic backgrounds, gender identities, sexual orientations, ages, religious affiliations, physical ability differences, and differences in political persuasions are represented both in the participants and the other volunteers. Mr. Johnson is always welcoming to all who come there and always going out of his way to encourage others to join Peace House, many times bringing them himself. At Peace House, Mr. Johnson is part of the Youth Advisory Board. Although there is no elected president of this board, the other members look up to him to be the leader. The board has produced entertaining and enriching programs for young people ages 5 through 17, as well as helping to develop a series of incentives for the kids who are tutored and do homework in the after-school program. He treats persons equally and without prejudice, especially when he challenges the use of sexist, racist, or homophobic language or behavior. He does this in the same calm and assured way that he does most things. This is extremely effective in lowering the emotional temperature and in preempting a defensive response. We, Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents of War, are very happy to congratulate Jalen for being chosen a recipient for this Youth Social Justice Award. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jalen.
Thank you, Mr. Senesi. I appreciate that. And we are proud to be part of recognizing Mr. Johnson this evening. Next, I welcome the Director of South Operations for Life EMS, John Pinkster. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. August O'Neill is a compassionate young leader with a strong desire to help others through an active involvement in the greater Kalamazoo area. Demonstrating a strong commitment to the community through organizations such as the Boys and Girls Club, Special Olympics, and Jeter's Leaders, August has been instrumental in mentoring others while simultaneously identifying and bringing forward community initiative opportunities. An active participant in program content discussions, August's caring nature allows him to work well with others in a wide variety of roles that include leadership, guidance, and support. Selected as the senior representative for the Executive Council of Jeter's Leaders and class president for Kalamazoo Central High School, August is never afraid to engage in discussions on controversial topics with his peers, allowing others to express their opinions freely while keeping the dialogue focused, productive, and healthy. August radiates an authentic energy that promotes equal opportunity and social justice. This was demonstrated in 2020 through his participation in a national conference in Philadelphia on hot-button topics, including racism and gender inequality. Later that same year, August became involved in local protests after the nationwide uproar over the tragic death of George Floyd. While seeking conscious action in the Kalamazoo area, August continues to teach others important life lessons through thought-provoking and engaging lesson plans created under the auspices of the Jeter's Leaders program. Through a strong desire to help others, the lessons led by August allow others to realize their voices and find a common ground from which to better our world. Nominated by Dr. Harold T. Swift of the Turn 2 Foundation and Jeter's Leaders, I have the privilege of presenting this year's Life EMS Social Justice Youth Award to August O'Neill. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pinkster. Thank you to Life EMS, and congratulations to Mr. O'Neill. Next, I'd like us to please welcome Dr. Betty and Mr. Tony Dennis. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Inspired by the love we have for our children, Amani, Amir, and Tony, who all attended Kalamazoo Public Schools, Amir also was awarded the Lewis Walker Scholarship. Because of this, and in fact, that we also love the city of Kalamazoo, my wife, Betty, and I were moved to give a scholarship through the City of Kalamazoo Lewis Walker Scholarship. We are pleased to present the Lodge Dennis Scholarship to Sierra Ward. Sierra is a definite leader in our community. She is the president of the Merch Tates Explorers and Girl Scouts, an athlete and extremely active at hers and our children's beloved high school, Lloyd Norris High School. One thing that impressed us was her work and love for her fellow KPS students when she partnered with KPS and motivated and had motivational bookmarks inserted in the diploma packets of each student at Lloyd Norris, Kalamazoo Central, and Phoenix High Schools. She created the bookmarks and the quotes to inspire the graduating seniors to continue their journey towards success and see the pandemic as a part of that journey and not an end to what they could accomplish in life. Sierra also initiated a bottle drive that included dozens of parents, students, and New Day Church. That drive raised nearly $800 in 4 hours. She raised funds for a scholarship for girls in the US and also girls in Tanzania on the continent of Africa. She also presented Kalamazoo as the youth delegate for our sister city, Namazu, Japan. She is committed to her faith. She understands that when she does something for her community, her school, and for others, she is serving the least of these, so is deserving of her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Nominated by Ms. Sonia Hollins, we are pleased to present the Lodge Dennis Social Justice Youth Award to Ms. Sierra Ward. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for those beautiful words. I really appreciate it, Dr. Betty and Tony Dennis, that you continue to do this year after year. Very meaningful. And congratulations to Ms. Ward for receiving the Lodge Dennis Social Justice Youth Award. Thank you again. Next, please welcome Judy Woolsey, Executive Assistant to the CEO of Schupan and Sons, who will present the next award tonight. Welcome, Judy.
I am excited every year that Mark lets me give this award. It's very uplifting and exciting, and I'm glad that the commissioners enjoy this as well. I'm pleased to introduce Kiera Price to everyone. Kiera is a youth ambassador in our community and enjoys bringing people together. She believes very strongly in setting an example as a leader, and she quickly recognizes, and responds to opportunities to help at her school, Loynorix, and also in the community at different organizations like Kalamazoo Gospel Mission. Kiera spends time as well at Loaves and Fishes Food Bank, packing food boxes, and is a youth mentor at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kalamazoo. Kiera is also involved in other organizations, including Upward Bound Trio program and the Suicide Squad dance team as an A-team dancer. An A-team dancer is required to set a good example for the rest of the dancers, quite often younger people. And she shows responsible leadership to other youth so that they also learn. She's made her voice heard while marching in several Black Lives Matter protests in town in a peaceful way. She demonstrates leadership and is well respected for sharing her opinions with others in a polite way. And she enjoys interacting with people from different cultures and religions. She loves to learn and will continue down that path as she grows older. I'm proud to present Kiera Rice with the Schupan and Sons Social Justice Youth Award. Congratulations, Kiera. You earned it.
Thank you, Ms. Woolsey. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for Schupan and Sons for sponsoring this Social Justice Youth Award for Ms. Price. Appreciate it very much. We are honored to have Dr. Lewis Walker here to present the award named in recognition of his work in racial justice in Kalamazoo. Please help me welcome Dr. Lewis Walker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and residents. This has been a year like none other, and the Dr. Lewis Walker Social Justice Youth Award this year is just that, like no other. We are recognizing not one, but three outstanding recipients: Michaela Bolton, Jamelia Clark, and Maya Daniels. These ladies have demonstrated exemplary community and civic engagement as students at Portage Northern High School. As leaders in their school for 4 years, these ladies have fueled the Empowered Club, which is an organization designed to support students of color academically and socially within the school environment, and to make the school a more inclusive place for students of all backgrounds. They were also 4-year members of the Black History Month Assembly cast, where they served in various leadership roles, elevating Black awareness and honoring Black excellence, both in the middle and high schools. This year, these ladies coordinated and hosted the first ever, which is now annual, Juneteenth celebration and Black Lives Matter event, which included a solidarity march. These ladies were also instrumental in creating 2 training videos for Portage Public School staff on diversity, inclusion, justice, and equity in the classroom. Outside of the school environment, these ladies have served at a variety of events with their church and the Boys and Girls Club of Kalamazoo. Nominated by Amanda Thrope, Dr. Thrope, and Justin Seals Sr., who tell us that these ladies are a trio of fierce social justice advocates and bold leaders. They have left a legacy of hope and created a path toward a future of change. Maya Daniels also received a second nomination submitted by Mount Zion's Youth Director, Morris Brooks. The nomination echoes the accolades already presented, characterizing Maya as a humanizing specialist, key leader, and model teenager with strong character. I'm extremely happy to present this year's Dr. Lewis Walker Social Justice Youth Award to Michaela Bolton, Jamelia Clark, and Maya Daniels. Congratulations, and I'm so proud of you. God bless and keep you safe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walker. It's good to see you, even if it's on Zoom video.
Yes.
I always appreciate your thoughtful comments, and we are so honored to have 3 recipients be recognized this evening. Thank you so much for doing that work.
Yes.
I want to pause just for a minute here. This is the time when there may be photographs or we would all be clapping, and we're not getting to do that this evening. But I want to take a moment just to be humbled and to recognize that here we are this evening when we've had adults who have been not demonstrating adult behavior in this country, and young people that are showing us how we should treat each other and what we should aspire to. So the tables have turned, and tonight we are recognizing young people, and that does indeed give me hope for our future together. So thank you so much for all the organizations that are recognizing these people, and thank you, young people, for the lives that you are leading and what you are showing to us and the rest of us this evening. All the recipients will receive a certificate, a cash award, and a 1-year membership to the NAACP. So once again, please join me in just pausing for a moment and recognizing these admirable young people this evening. Thank you so much. Now we're getting back to our regular agenda, but at the beginning of our regular agenda, we do not have an invocation, but we do have a proclamation this evening. And the proclamation is going to be read by our esteemed Vice Mayor Griffin. And I believe that Shalana Lewis, who is Director of TRHT, is here. I see your face here on Zoom. Nice to see you from the Kalamazoo Community Foundation to accept the proclamation. Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to read this proclamation today. As you can see, I'm still here at our local celebration of the National Day of Racial Healing, presented by TRHT. I'm at the State Theater. So without further ado, let's get into this proclamation. For the National Day of Racial Healing, January 19th, 2021. Whereas we have all witnessed racial divisiveness rising in America's urban, rural, suburban, tribal communities today that threatens the very core of this great country's unified front. And whereas, just like those who came before us, it is our duty to protect the children of this country and maintain communities in which they may all be given the opportunity to succeed. And whereas we understand and recognize that there is a racial divide in our country, and we must all work earnestly to heal the wounds created by racial, ethnic, and religious bias, and build up equitable and just society so that all children can thrive. And whereas children have the right to be provided every opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive in nurturing environments that don't violate their safety, dignity, and humanity. And whereas every single person has the capability to make a simple change within themselves that can have a profound effect on the entire society. And whereas if we all dedicate ourselves to the principles of truth, racial healing, and transformation, we can all bring about the necessary changes in thinking and behavior that will propel this great country forward as a unified force where racial biases will become a thing of the past. And whereas racial healing is vital and crucial commitment to the education, social, mental, and overall well-being of all our children. And whereas the City of Kalamazoo, in conjunction with others throughout the United States of America, acknowledges January 19th, 2021, and hereafter annually the Tuesday following the third Monday in January, the day after the observed Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, as the National Day of Racial Healing, and urges all citizens to promote racial healing and transformation in the ways that are best suited for them individually and means to working together to ensure the best quality of life for every child. Now, therefore, on behalf of Mayor David F. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, and members of the 53rd City Commission, hereby recognize January 19th, 2021 as the National Day of Racial Healing in the City of Kalamazoo.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Griffin. Ms. Lewis, do you have some remarks?
Sure, thank you so much. I just want to say the City of Kalamazoo has been involved with TRHT since its inception, and I'm really, really grateful and thankful for the partnership and recognizing this holiday every single year. This year is our 5th year, and we have the honor of having our governor actually recognize this day across the state of Michigan. So this is a huge year and a huge moment for all of us who care about justice, who care about equity, and who care about healing. So I just wanted to thank you all for being along on the journey, and also we're here at the State Theater, and we are broadcasting a live show here, no audience, but I think that our work, will continue to grow and expand in the coming year. So I guess this is an invitation to the commissioners and city to talk about what does it mean to do this racial healing work. It's so imperative right now. Our whole community is really hurting, and I think we need more than ever to come together to talk about and plan for how we can heal as a community. So I want to really invite everybody to do that. There's so many things, like I said, that happened nationally, locally between this year, last year, and I'm sure there's more to come. And we need each other more than ever. So thank you on behalf of the whole TRC partnership, which many of folks probably watching are involved with, for continuing to recognize the day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you and I appreciate your words. Thank you for taking time away from your event to speak here at the State Commission meeting. Shalana Lewis is the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Director at the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. So thanks again. Now we are down to adoption of our formal agenda. Commissioners, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes that commissioners would like to see? Okay, so I'm not seeing any. All right, I'm not seeing any. There are 2 items on the consent agenda that I will be abstaining on because they relate to a nonprofit organization that I'm involved with. So I guess as long as I can abstain during that vote on our consent agenda items, I won't ask to have those items pulled off. Next item is communications. City Manager Ritzma.
None, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, now is the opportunity for general public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, sir, we do have some, and we'll begin with those right now.
Hello, my name is Sarah Jacobs, and I'm the Director of the Kalamazoo County Continuum of Care, as well as a Kalamazoo resident. Our vision for Kalamazoo County residents to live in a safe, healthy, and affordable homes in a thriving community, which is made possible through bringing together philanthropic, public and private dollars, strategic partners, and data-driven actions. We believe that increased development of affordable housing across the county is critical to our community's ability to address homelessness. Additionally, we know that Kalamazoo must aggressively pursue opportunities for state and federal funding to ensure that we leverage as much of those resources as possible. The approval of these pilot resolutions would ensure that the developments can be given consideration by the Michigan State Housing Development Authority and compete with other proposals from across the state. Delay of the approval would prevent these projects from being considered by Michigan State Housing Development Authority during 2021, as there is only one round of review this year.
Good evening. My name is Casey Coker. I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I live in the Stewart neighborhood. I'm calling tonight to raise up the recent resolution to quote unquote forgive City Manager Ritzma without holding him accountable for lying to the community and lying to the council about Carrie Ann Thomas's dismissal. Without holding him accountable, this is unacceptable behavior. And how is the city supposed to trust the city manager or the city council if these types of behaviors are not held in accountability or held in responsibility? We cannot accept lying on the job as something that's acceptable to quote unquote forgive without accountability and or discipline. And then be asked to trust you as a city council or as a city manager. If I lied at work in such a manner, I would likely be suspended and or dismissed from my role. The idea that City Manager Ritzma is not being held accountable is the truest of privilege that I thought we were trying to dismantle as a Kalamazoo community. And I suppose my question is, if we are not holding people like City Manager Ritzma accountable for lying to us as a city, as a community, as people who put our trust in you as a council, are we really holding people to accountability as leaders in this community and as people who we trust with decisions that impact our daily lives? I'm also concerned about potential, the rumors that there are potential law enforcement officials who participated in the insurrection that occurred at the Capitol on January 6th. I feel entitled as a city resident to live in a community where the law enforcement officials that parole and ensure the safety of my community are also defenders of democracy. And so recent comments that came to light related to the idea that some law enforcement officials supported and or participated and or were present at the insurrection is unacceptable, and I call for their dismissal immediately. So I appreciate you holding space for my comments tonight. Thank you for hearing my comments tonight, and I look forward to conversation around what I brought up. Good night.
Hi, my name is Lisa Wilcott. I do not live within the city of Kalamazoo. I am calling in regard to Lift Foundation's application for pilot approval. I won't reiterate the information contained in the application, but I do want to say that Hawthorne Park does meet the goals of the Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 plan. I do want to address information that I believe will be raised in opposition to the project. First, it's important to know that LIFT is and has been committed to providing affordable housing since 1966. LIFT was formed by community volunteers and continues to operate with a volunteer board of directors today. LIFT was only created in response to the City of Kalamazoo voters rejecting a referendum that would have created a public housing authority in Kalamazoo. The voters in 1966 didn't want low-income housing in their backyard, and it seems that those currently in opposition to this project do not want a low-income housing project in their backyard. I have lived and managed at market rate properties, and I've lived and managed at low-income properties. Both properties had their own issues. Residents didn't pay at both properties. residents cause damage at both properties, people are people. Things will happen. My point is you have to give people a chance. You cannot simply couch your dissatisfaction in more polite terms by instead talking about the parking lot. In terms of the parking lot and the site plan, this project was not given the easy route with CPD. If this was the easy route, then I'd like to see what the hard route is, because city staff did not take any shortcuts. It took a long time to get everything right and get their approval. I'd never been through the process before in the city, and it was arduous. Kudos to staff for making sure all requirements are met and a quality project is going to be built. I know that flooding concerns are at issue. However, the city took this into account when approving the site plan and required a flood mitigation pond. The green space on Lake Street remains mostly green space. The parking lot will be placed in an area where there was formerly a house and a bar. There is concrete all over this area that will need to be removed before we can start construction. Eagle has identified wetland areas and how those are to be handled. I was on site walking the property with them and the engineer, so I know it was done. I know it's difficult to give up vacant land that you thought you had the right to use. The arguments are not new. Every time Lyft has built a new property, whether it was in Kalamazoo Township or the city of Portage, the neighbors have the same argument, because they no longer get to use a property that isn't theirs. In the case of Hawthorne Park, however, residents will still get to enjoy the green space, and if they want, they can use the community garden and walk on the walking path. The fact is that this site allows for construction of a 6-story apartment buildings under the current zoning. The only variance that was requested and approved was to allow for residential on the first floor of one building. During the ZBA's consideration of this request, they stated that this is a routine request and that it's always been approved. So again, no special treatment. I thank you for your time and listening to these comments.
This is Michelle Davis calling from Housing Resources Incorporated, which is located inside the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling today to lend our support to the Lyft Foundation's projects, both for the payment in lieu of taxes for the affordable housing development of their properties, and also the Nights Inn Motel project. Housing Resources is proud to support the Lyft Foundation's efforts for these projects and their ongoing efforts to provide housing solutions in Kalamazoo County. The Lyft Foundation's portfolios and experience should provide our community with confidence and pride in supporting their opportunities. We're proud to support them and these projects that will further housing solutions and provide these solutions right now for people who need it most. Thank you.
My name is Ray Sweeney, and I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I am also a member in my 5th year of the Isaac Affordable Housing Task Force, which became the joint Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force almost 2 years ago. If it is not already evident to those who are watching this meeting, you've been doing, and you have done today, many things that further the efforts to increase affordable housing here in the city. Thank you. The task is huge, but one can be optimistic when it is clear that so many are attempting to address this issue. In this time of national self-searching, it is good to return to the vision of the founders of our country. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Let me point out some aspects of this statement. First, note that the reference to all men, which can be construed more broadly, but does not limit itself to all citizens. Second, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness were only some of those rights that are ours by virtue of being a part of the human family. It is only proper to consider what might be a broader understanding of basic human rights. Thus, I quote from a body representative of all the people in the world, the United Nations, and its Declaration of Human Rights. If the word men in our declaration is construed as too narrowly defined, recognize that the committee that formulated these statements in the UN Declaration was chaired by a woman, our own Eleanor Roosevelt. Quoting Article 25, Section 1, in part, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care and necessary social services. Adequate housing is considered a human right by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 1948. Finally, returning to the Declaration of 1776, consider the words, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You act on our behalf. You were elected for this work. Note that our whole society bears these responsibilities, but you must monitor the outcomes and act when adequate housing is not achieved by the normal function of our economy. Thank you.
This is for item number G5. My name is Richard Stewart. I reside in the city of Kalamazoo in the Southtown neighborhood. I'm calling regarding the tax, issuing the tax incentive to Lyft Foundation to install their 77-car paved parking lot on the 10 parcels. It is currently designated as an NFP national feature, and it appears that Mayor David Anderson is using his political influence to push forward this undesirable location. The Southtown neighborhood has met repeatedly and in unanimous opposition to destroying this natural feature. This is Southtown neighborhood's only natural green space, natural watershed, and natural wildlife habitat. The tax vote tonight will only incentivize the destruction of a natural feature. Over 100 trees will be destroyed to build this paved parking lot for 77 cars, and the drainage will be into an open above ground storm sewer directly behind Tina McClinton's house on Lake Street. She is one of our valued neighbors and very active in our neighborhood. So we ask that you postpone voting on this tax incentive until the city accepts the Southtown neighborhood plan that specifically protects this from development. Mr. Anderson represented his nonprofit at the Planning Commission some time ago, the very first meeting, and the Planning Commission went on record to state this was not the appropriate location for his project and recommended he consider other sites that were available to him. They rejected and turned down his request for rezoning, but he sidestepped that board and went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and where he has more political influence. So that's how we got here today. I ask that you do not incentivize financially anyone, including Lyft Foundation, from destroying this natural feature. It is protected in the Southtown neighborhood plan that no one in the city will accept, but they're accepting the other 22 neighborhoods. Please do not vote or make a motion to set aside this vote for another day after they accept the Southtown neighborhood plan. Thank you.
Yes, hi, my name is Tina McClinton. I live on Lake Street, and I am calling about G5. I am calling about the Lake and Stockbridge project. It was not informed. We were not informed of any meeting. Again, no one contacts the people. The Southtown neighborhood, it is just like we do not exist, but we do. We have been fighting this battle since December 18, 2018. I ask that you please listen to the people of the neighborhood and delay this request, because this tax incentive will promote the destruction of an NFP natural features protected area. We think you should only issue tax incentives to develop unused parcels that are not in NFP sites. For Lake and Stockbridge, as it is an NFP site, I have lived in my home for 36 years. We have flooding issues over here in Southtown neighborhood. This land is 60% wetlands. Has a natural watershed, has 40% is on a floodplain. And this natural green space helps absorb water like a sponge. It is our only natural watershed. Lots of wildlife. This is why the NFD put it in protection. See, in this neighborhood where they are asking for a tax exemption is to build parking lots in an already known flooding area. The storm drains fill up, back up in the streets, and then back up into the sanitary sewers. And that backs up in our basements and businesses of our homes. Now, after one day of rain, we are trapped in our neighborhood, Southtown neighborhood. If we had an emergency, we would just die. The water issues are bad because the city keeps building in floodplain areas. They were told once already, January 3rd, 2019, to build elsewhere. So please deny this tax credit for Lake and Stockbridge, or at least delay it. Please talk to the families, talk to the people that live around there. This is a beautiful natural green space, the last one we have left. The NFP is a good area. It is not a good area to build anything. It is a floodplain. Why would you trap more people in this neighborhood? This is not right. Please delay this tax credit for destruction of our last green space in Southtown neighborhood. Please, we have enough to deal with. Please, if you give...
Jacob Johnson, Kalamazoo City Limits. Sorry, don't know if I'm recording. Greetings, commissioners. Just want to call and touch bases. Just kind of seeing some of the information about the proclamation for the Day of Racial Healing, which I think is great. Still reflecting on last year and all of the racial trauma that has been perpetuated on behalf of our city. And glad to see that the city is attempting to engage in some type of justice and accountability around its complacency and place in our racial disparities that we see in our city, which are horrible. So many thoughts on the mind. Just want to touch bases and say I see you, commissioners. Shout out to Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin. With the budget coming up, I think there's a lot to be said. I would still love to talk about how we can talk more specifically about agenda line item for Black agenda for Kalamazoo residents, considering the racial disparities, considering racism being a public health crisis, and all that we know about the dynamics of race and racism and how they're being played out here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. There was made some mention about an agenda item where there's maybe some potential conflict of interest around housing in Kalamazoo. And Mayor Anderson, I think there's some real interesting things in the city, and interesting is a light way of saying how much of a hold you have on housing. And I think this idea of conflict of interest and how much pull and say you have around projects around housing is something that needs to be addressed further. And I think there's some serious accountability that needs to be had. Kalamazoo needs a lot of work in many areas, but our housing crisis is ridiculous. I hope to talk more with you, commissioners, about that. Have a good evening.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone that took time to call in this evening. We appreciate receiving your comments and look forward to a time when we'll be able to do that in person, hopefully in the not too distant future. Next on our agenda is our consent agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have 9 items submitted for approval this evening, as well as a 10th item that will be held over until February 1st. First is the approval of a contract with J. Rank Electric Incorporated for the phosphate upgrades, electrical and instrumentation project in the amount of $3,401,561. Next is the approval of a contract extension and purchase order with Rathco Safety and Supply Incorporated in the amount of $200,000 for the rental of temporary traffic control devices. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving an Act 381 brownfield plan for a redevelopment project at 508 Harrison Street and 660 Gull Road. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving a payment in lieu of taxes for the 530 Rose Street Limited Dividend Housing Association Limited Partnership for Rose Street Senior located at 530 South Rose Street pursuant to Section 35-4 of the Kalamazoo City Code. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving a payment in lieu of taxes for a Limited Dividend Housing Association Limited Partnership to be formed by the Lift Foundation for 10 properties located in the 200 and 300 blocks of Lake Street pursuant to Section 3-54 of the Kalamazoo, or 35-4 of the Kalamazoo City Code. Next is the adoption of two resolutions granting a payment in lieu of taxes to River Caddis Development LLC, otherwise or a LDHALP to be formed by River Caddis Development LLC for the properties located at 508 Harrison Street and 660 Gull Road for the proposed 4% and 9% low-income housing tax credits or tax project credit projects. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving an application for a new neighborhood enterprise zone certificate in the Park Cedar Burdick level NEZ. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving the partial retirement and reissuance of hospital revenue refunding bonds, Series 2016 for Bronson Healthcare Group Incorporated. Next is the approval of a loan request for the renovation and acquisition of the Knights Inn for $200,000 of housing for all funding and $50,000 of home HUD funding. And finally, approval of a purchase agreement with an acceptance of a warranty deed from Robert E. Indias and Eileen F. Stryker, trustees of the Indias Stryker Living Trust for 4,281 square feet of parcel at 2300 Angley Road for the amount of $8,562. And that's it, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Manager Ritzma. So Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 through 9, postpone item 10 until Friday, February 1st, 2021, and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
I so move it.
Motion made by Commissioner Urban.
Support.
Up. Just a little late there, Commissioner Knott. Supported by Commissioner Cunningham. Thank you so much. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. However, I am abstaining on item G5 and G9 as I am a volunteer member of the board of the Lift Foundation that is associated with those two activities.
Okay. And Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Next is our regular agenda. I think we have one item. Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have one item, but several components to it. H1 is the adoption of a resolution approving and adopting the annual appropriation for the year 2021, setting forth the number of mills to be levied, approve an interim appropriation for the year 2021, and establishing policies for the administration of the budget. We have H1A, which is the approval of a proposed fiscal year 2021 Brownfield Redevelopment Authority budget as submitted by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board. H1AB or AB, approval of the proposed 2021 Economic Development Corporation budget as submitted by the Economic Development Corporation Board. C is the approval of the fiscal year 2021 Downtown Development Authority operating budget and the existing 2 mil Downtown Development Authority tax levy. D is the approval of the fiscal year 2021 Downtown Economic Growth Authority operating budget. E is the approval of the proposed 2021 fee schedule for the Kalamazoo Municipal Golf Association. F is the adoption of a resolution approving the 2021 fees for various permits, hearings, etc., within the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. G is the adoption of a resolution to establish the Department of Parks and Recreation fees and charges for 2021. And H is the adoption of a resolution to establish the City of Kalamazoo cemetery fees and charges for 2021.
Thank you very much, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
Your Honor, we do not have a formal presentation this evening, but I have several department directors available for questions. And I just want to kind of walk through how we got to tonight. We held a work session on the budget on December 14th of last year. And we had a public hearing at the first meeting in January, I believe the 4th. And so tonight, the budget is being presented for approval as the city charter requires that the budget be approved by February 1st. So I'm glad to answer any questions or have staff do so as well.
So commissioners, any questions for Manager Ritzma or his staff at this time? Commissioner Urban.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Anderson. I have a question in view of the fact that our Department of Public Safety budget is pretty much close to the same as it was in the previous year. Yet, since this time last year, a lot has happened in Kalamazoo that's called into question how the priorities are arranged within the Department of Public Safety, and also recognizing that the investigation of the incidents that occurred last summer is still ongoing. This is the OIR group that the city contracted to do that investigation for us, independent body. Their report is still being assembled and there's some time off, but we have to approve a budget before then, according to our charter. What I would like to know is what has shifted in the priorities of the city's police department, Department of Public Safety, in recognition of somewhat changed situation that we face here in Kalamazoo. Is there someone present who can just outline for us what has been done so far that reflects the changed awareness we have of the role of DPS in our community?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Urban. I see we have our Chief Vernon Coakley here. Or would you like to respond to Commissioner's question?
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. Good evening, Vice Mayor Griffin, commissioners, community. Commissioner Urban, thank you for that question, sir. I'll be happy to share with you, as I have laid out through last year leading up to 2021, I have made the move to continue to follow the procedural justice line that is going on in our world, in our country, in our nation, more importantly in our community, listening to our residents of the changes that they have asked. And I'm listening to those, in fact, things. And I have changed, an organizational change in the structure of public safety. And one of the things that changing is the naming of many of our divisions. In particular, professional standards has now moved to the community affairs of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is to enhance the enhance transparency, legitimacy, and trust in our community, the equity, inclusion, diversity is in line with the procedural justice. Again, the 21st century policing is very important. As I talk about it, I always reference it as the Bible for us in public safety, following those tenets of the 21st century policing, doing best practices that are leading in our country. We are accredited at public safety. Those are the best practices in the country. We are one of the leading organizations, not only in this state, but in this country as well, in following those practices. Yes, we've increased staffing. In particular, I talked about the public information officer that we've talked about throughout the year of 2020 that is necessary to communicate not only internally, but more importantly, externally. So our community, as well as our government, is knowing what's going on before, during, and after events. The community collaborator, which is so important for us. I deem as I listen to the community, listening in that, we need to get out and tell our community what we're doing, who we are, what they're missing, because sometimes some things are missing about the great things that their public safety department is doing and helping, leading as servant leaders in their community. That word is getting out, not by sworn officers, but by the lens of a civilian. We're enhancing our training. We're going to continue to enhance our training, the current training that we're offering, again, in the areas of social justice, diversity, implicit bias, and more importantly, de-escalation, which is very important. Hiring and recruiting. I'm currently working with the community on those things about hiring diverse, local, those who are racially, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out there, Commissioner Cunningham. I'm looking for that word.
Culturally competent.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Just dropped that. Oh, I apologize. But I'm soliciting information or soliciting ideas to reimagine ways to enhance our recruiting and our hiring base better than that national best practices. More importantly, what does our community want? I'm looking to listen what our community wants and what they want to see in public safety officers here in Kalamazoo. And also, what I've also included is the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeals Board in the hiring process. I've actually placed them in the room so they can listen and also equate. They don't have an opportunity to be a part of the decision making, but more importantly, they can see what the hiring practices are of their public safety department. The CID, the Criminal Investigations Division, I've included in that, again, the procedural justice sway and adding community collaboration to that. Because in investigations, we're talking about collaborating with people, citizens, more importantly, victims of crimes. And we have to communicate with those people in a way that, along with our training, that will enhance a better way to get feedback so that we can bring justice for them moving forward. I talked about the PIO and the community collaborator, but we're going to continue. We're so excited, I am, and so as well as the team, to get out from the word go once this COVID pandemic is over, to continue our outreach programs. We're looking for better ways and enhanced ways for our community outreach. Again, our community policing unit, our youth bureau is a new item that I talked about in accepting the COPS grant, getting folks up to speed, our staff, so that we can include our youth bureau with our staffing, bridging opportunities, the group violence intervention, the domestic violence team, our citizens academy, our youth academy. I'm looking to enhance and bring that back to public safety. Because again, we're talking about our most vulnerable, our youth, our elderly, and the mentally ill, the crime reduction team, the homeless outreach team, pastors on patrol, and our explorers program are just to name a few. So I'm excited to be able to move Commissioner Urban, commissioners, community in a way, in a direction that is going to be unparalleled. Just the energy that we're looking to expand in our community and take our public safety department to different levels. So I hope I've answered that question in short, but we're ready to go and excited to use the men and women of public safety to move forward to make our Kalamazoo a better place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Coakley, very much. Other questions for staff? Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest the chief talk a little bit about the social service side of
Yes.
what your
Yes.
plans are.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, City Manager Ritzma. And again, that's another outreach program that I look to bring a different service different delivery of service. As we've known, as I've gone through the ranks of this organization of public safety, I've been on the ground walking and talking with, in particular, those who are in trauma, those who are in need, those who are in crisis, in particular are homeless, in particular are mentally ill, drug, substance abuse. And what I found is that there are often times, and when I communicate with these good people, that while they're in crisis, there are times when they need those resources right away, and sometimes there is a delay in receiving that service. And so, what I look to do is, as I'm in the infancy of trying to figure out what this looks like, delivering this service. Because there's so many resources we have in our community. There's so many good people that are all into the social programming, and I'm listening to those people in our community, how we can maybe shape. I'm looking across the country of what other communities are doing, and I'm also listening to our residents about what they think we could do. But what I'm looking to do is get a finalized piece together in order to see what that delivery looks like. So I'm excited for this. This is a great opportunity to make Kalamazoo great. We'll be greater, and it's important to for these people that I talk about, some of our most vulnerable, to get these resources right away without delay. And again, look to certainly to inform, educate folk in this particular area, and have patience and negotiate with people to get where they need to go, importantly, to get the services. So thank you for that, City Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Other questions for staff related to the budget?
Just another
Commissioner Hess,
just a follow-up question for Chief Coakley. And it may seem simple, but will you also speak to the percentage of the budget that you take and why that is? Why we have the community policing, we have first responding, and we also have fire services. So could you speak to that a little bit and the need for the budget?
Thank you, Commissioner Hess, for that question. In particular, oftentimes in comments from our citizens, I hear that the word cops is used a lot, and rightfully so. We are cops, we are police officers. But more importantly, what I like to drill down to is that we are your public safety department, servant leaders in your community. We're your first responders. We are police officers. We're your fire suppression team, and we're also medical first responders. Many times you see police cars chasing fire trucks, or fire trucks chasing police cars and/or EMS. We deliver all three of those services. Much of our programming or our budget is included, and much of it is in personnel, operating costs, capital projects, buildings, and things of that nature, equipment, clothing, pens and paper. That's where majority of our budget is in that particular area on the expenditures. We currently have over full-time employees of 293 full-time employees, and we have 6 part-time employees. I could drill down, a little bit more into the budget, but I know there's time that I don't have with that. But in particular, I want this community to know that we're more than just cops. We're servant leaders, and I want that word to be known. We are servant leaders, and we're looking to, and we are and will be the servant leaders that you expect in your community as public safety. So thank you again, Commissioner Hess, for that question.
Other questions for the chief or in general about the budget? Commissioner Pradel.
Good evening, Chief. Would you be willing to just verify as well for the public? It's my understanding that hires have now shifted back to KVCC's academy. Is that the case?
That is correct. Thank you for that question, Commissioner Pareto. That is correct. We have shifted back to the Kalamazoo Valley Police Academy and continue to look to do so. So we are excited to be back in our community with the academy. So that is that's correct.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes, I have a question. This isn't to Chief. I have a question just for clarification for community in terms of any specific line items, for example, like for gun violence. If, as we don't see that as a specific line item in the budget, where are there opportunities for funding to be, where are there opportunities for there to be funding for issues such as gun violence, as it's not specifically drawn out in the budget? That's the first thing. The second is in relation to environmental. I know we had the ECC come through a few meetings ago, and they had a recommendation for a full-time, it was either 1 or 2 full-time staff folks, but as that wasn't addressed in the budget, I want to allow for conversation or at least explanation as to how that's going to be addressed in the future.
So Chief Coakley, if you want to respond to Vice Mayor's first question, I don't know if Manager Rissman, you want to respond to her second question?
So the first question being how are items like gun violence included in the budget?
Yeah.
So Vice Mayor and Commissioners, we have the ability throughout the year as things evolve and change to make a budget amendment at any time. And one simple place to make that amendment or a budget amendment from is fund balance. We have a fund balance that's over our target, and it's there for things like gun violence that come up in the community and it needs to be addressed urgently. So that's certainly an appropriate way to handle a budget amendment for such activity. I'm gonna ask, so the second question was around the environmental sustainability plan. I'm going to ask Director Kick to talk about how the recommendations for staffing are going to be handled in the budget going forward.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Mayor Griffin, for allowing me to answer this question. So as the sustainability plan begins to finalize and get ready for implementation, what we would like is some time to really understand how that affects our current staff capacity. And we also see this as something that would be very much a joint position, as public services handles so much of our water and watershed and many of the sustainability issues that are in the plan. Even Parks and Rec has recommendations within the plan. And so we need the time to also figure out which department and division that this environmental staff person would best be suited for as well.
Vice Mayor Griffin, did that answer your questions adequately?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Chief Coakley.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to add to that as well. I am not sitting stagnant on what other programs and grants are possible. So I've directed my staff currently, and we are seeking out other programs, including grant funding, that can assist us in the outreach of assisting us in programming within Kalamazoo Department of Safety, and more importantly, the city of Kalamazoo. So we are currently seeking and looking for those grant opportunities within the federal government and other places to assist us with funding for our outreach programming.
Yes, Vice Mayor Griffin.
Thank you, and thank you for the clarification, City Manager Richema, and Director Kick and Chief Coakley. I just want to just note here that this is something that, as a commission, while I do appreciate and I applaud the efforts of law enforcement to take the steps needed to do their part to address gun violence, all of the contributing factors and all of the dollars and all of that needs to come from the commission. And so while that unfortunately was not a line item listed, as we move forward and we've been notified of this fund of money to potentially address that, we need to make sure that that's not just a priority in talk, that we actually step forward accordingly with the dollars. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yep, very important. I do want to remind people that although it was a very modest investment, the commission did make a decision at the end of last year to use some funding that had not been categorized that was available for the commission to allocate that towards some very specific ideas related to addressing issues related to gun violence. And I think, and my hope and belief is, Vice Mayor Griffin, that is just the beginning of some more significant investment, the work that we're going to be doing as this year goes on. Obviously, those funds were not, although they were allocated in 2020, they were not spent in 2020. So that is funding that will be available to us as a carry forward. Are there any other questions for staff on the budget at this time? All right, not seeing any. So the recommended action is a motion to adopt the annual appropriation resolution and approve the component unit budgets and fee schedules. Is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Hess.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Cunningham. Is there further discussion, Commission? Commissioner Knott.
Thanks. I just like to remind everybody that the budget process really begins like April-ish, I think it is. And by the time we see the budget, whenever that was, sometime around Thanksgiving or shortly thereafter, that work is zipped up. It's been done. And so it's my hope that as a commission and in collaboration with city leadership, that we'll have some form of a retreat, whether it's in person or electronically over Zoom, where we're establishing very early on priorities that we all care about and that we've been talking about, this gun violence prevention as an example, in the end of the first quarter, the beginning of the second quarter, so that we're informing the work that city staff's going to be undertaking, like I said, sometime in April. I think that we're very reactionary. We get a product when there's almost no ability to make changes. And it's my hope that this year that we do things a little bit differently so that we're not seeing the very macro, visionary numbers, but we get more involved in the details, because I think that that's where, at least I do, and I know that the Vice Mayor has some real concrete questions as it relates to what the numbers are and how decisions were made.
Thank you, Commissioner Knott. I think that's very important as well. Any other discussion or comments? Then I will just say a couple things, and that is this, that there are certainly, when we pass this budget, as Manager Risma suggested, there is still an opportunity to amend this budget. There's an opportunity for it to be malleable as we decide that during the year, if our desires and focus change. And so that is an ongoing living process we're not done with that. So that is something I know all of us care about, or all of us will continue to, you know, really spend our time and attention on. But further, I don't want to forget when we talk about, you know, some of our highlight issues is that there are a profound set of core services that the city provides for residents. And those core services are related to all kinds of things, related to water and sewer and streets and blight and gun violence and safety in neighborhoods. And we cannot forget that we do have between 650 and 700 good employees here in the city of Kalamazoo who go about doing that work, that core work, every single day. And sometimes that work has to happen at midnight on a Sunday, and sometimes it happens in the when it's below zero. And so this is, I really want to reach out and thank all staff who work for the city of Kalamazoo. I appreciate your commitment to the vision that we are putting forth here together to make this city be a decent, supportive place for all residents who live here in the city and visit the city. So the work continues. Thank you to all of you who do that work, and I look forward to this being a year of change and hope for us in the city, and this budget is what helps drive that. Clerk Borland, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
and Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you very much, commissioners. The motion passes. Next are reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzman, do you have a report?
Yeah, a couple items. First, I just want to thank our CFO, Steve Asensi, and Jennifer Clark, our accounting and budgeting division manager, and Valletta Sellers, who's our budgeting and accounting specialist, who took a lot of time putting the budget together. And work actually begins in the summer for actually preparing a document for a presentation. And I just want to recognize their great work in getting this done. The budget this year is online for the first time, so we're excited about that. And also the department directors and other budget staff that helped prepare departmental budgets. Again, it's a team effort, and really appreciate that work. We have, I also want to ask Director Baker to provide a brief report on our odor remediation progress. And Director Baker, if you want to give an update, I'd appreciate it.
Welcome, Director Baker.
Thank you, Mayor, City Manager, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. You'll see in your packet under the City Manager's report, there is a attached report. It's about 128 pages. That's our summary report on progress during the last quarter of 2020. There's also an additional link. If you go into the agenda report itself and then you click on that link, that will open up access to some nearly 12,000 pages of document to get into some more details on this subject. Just want to give a brief rundown of kind of what that content is in general. The city's completed one of our 4 carbon scrubber units. That is, we now have 1 carbon scrubber unit online at the wastewater treatment plant. That was part of a project that was awarded in late 2018, early 2019. Work on the 3 remaining units will start back up once the weather becomes warm, and that the contractors can work with those materials and adhesives that are needed for that fiberglass duct work. Another item to report on is that we have 3 new community sensors that were installed today. Those are part of our EnviroSuite system, which provides real-time continuous weather data tracking as well as hydrogen sulfide tracking at the treatment plant and within the community. So we currently have 3 community sensors, and we're adding 3 more community sensors. The addition of those community sensor locations are Crom at Prouty, location on Burdick Street, and in Rockwell Park. That brings our total sensor network up to 12, with 6 in-plant sensors and 6 community sensors. During the last quarter, we also completed design sampling on 6 locations within the sewer network. That is data that we need to design the biofilter, essentially to understand what the chemical constituents are going to be in that foul airstream that we're now pulling from the sewers. During that testing and sampling evolution, that provided a unique opportunity for us to partner with Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. At their request, we also placed some community samples so that we could get analytical level data on some of the locations within the community. So that report is also available in the online data. So if you look at Appendix D, that's about a 5,000 page report that has all that information in there. That report was sent to the local health department and Michigan Department of Health and Human Services on January 11th. So this is all pretty recent information that we've been able to obtain and get back out to our community partners that can review this data and make some further recommendations on it. Design is also progressing well with our biofilter. The biofilter is at this point approximately $4 million capital project that we have underway for 2021. Working in process with that design engineering. We're also working through local and state permits. You'll see that in the report, various meeting minutes from where we're going before tree board, we're going before natural features protection board. We're outlining the footprint area and changes within the site that are needed to accommodate the footprint for that biofilter. The odor task force is a joint partnership between technical staff at the City of Kalamazoo, technical staff at Graphics Packaging International, and we also have a citizen membership. So there's accomplishments highlighted in the report, not only city accomplishments, but Graphics Packaging International accomplishments as well. Some of their highlights include an odor investigation report as required by Eagle. That is part of the information that's provided. They also have purchased and installed an EnviroSuite system. They've got 10 sensor locations on their property and at their property lines. And they also have just started feeding a chemical to help with odor control, and that is a hydrogen peroxide mix that they're feeding within their waste stream to help mitigate some of the odors. So that's essentially some of the highlights in the report. Again, there's been a lot of activity. It's a pretty large report. A lot of it is very technical in nature. And if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now.
Thank you, Director Baker, for taking what almost sounds like 20,000 pages of reporting and condensing that down to a palatable presentation this evening. But more specific questions, anyone for Director Baker? Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah, Director Baker. You mentioned this a bit earlier today, but just so the public hears this again, next meeting, I think it's February 1st, the plan is to have a presentation on water and waste as well, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We have planning for the City Commission a pretty thorough update and report on the water and wastewater utilities to include, programs, operational programs, as well as a pretty substantial capital improvement plan. We also plan to discuss the financial health of the utility and our rate recommendations for 2021.
Great, thank you. I asked that just because I know a number of these initiatives that you're outlining and they're in progress, are related to that budget. So thank you.
Good question, Commissioner Pradel. Appreciate that. Any other questions for Director Baker? Commissioner Hess, yes.
Director Baker, I want to thank you for that extensive report. I did try to read through it all, but it is quite technical, as you said, and I appreciate your willingness to put that together and now on a quarterly basis for us. It does look like we're moving forward on the odor task force as well. Is this a point, can I ask Director Baker to talk a little bit about what we heard from the callers earlier? Manager Ritzema, is that possible?
Sure.
I know that they talked about building on a floodplain, and I know that you're pretty well versed with that area of Lake Street and so on. And I wonder if you would kind of address what we heard from the callers today about building on a floodplain in what is a NFP protected area.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. All projects in the city of Kalamazoo, whether they're in a floodplain or not, must adhere to our storm water ordinance. And our stormwater ordinance here in the city of Kalamazoo requires essentially a net zero discharge. And what that means is that we look at the site before it's developed, and then we consider the site as proposed, what is the development proposing. So when you look at impervious surfaces and essentially what volume of stormwater is going to be generated at the site, the difference between before and after essentially has to be net zero. That's accomplished in developments through retaining on site. So if sites then produce runoff, they would have to retain that runoff on site. There's other green infrastructure alternatives that they can use, such as pervious pavements and some of that nature. So any project, regardless of where it's at in Kalamazoo, must abide by our stormwater ordinances and follow those. Additionally, this site, as many are aware, has somewhere between 50 to 60% of floodplain. It's a 100-year floodplain, zone AE, what we call it. So any development within a floodplain is now subject to Michigan rules and regulations concerning construction in floodplains. So permits must be obtained through EGLE, and there's a very strict process for that. Essentially, to boil down what those requirements are, again, it's a net zero requirement. Any fill material placed in a floodplain must be mitigated on a 1-for-1 basis. So if 100 cubic yards of material are placed in a floodplain, that within that property, there has to be 100 cubic yards of compensation cut to, even it out. So if you're going to fill an area, you need to cut an area so that the resultant impact is, again, net zero. So we've got what are essentially net zero impacts by state requirements, and then net zero impacts by our stormwater requirements. Now, that being said, we understand the flood concerns in this area. With a project adhering to all local and state ordinances and requirements, a net zero project should result in the same level of community flooding before and after. So we would expect this community to continue to flood. And just speaking with, the rainfall that we've had over the last 5 years, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, we've had 5 continuous years of well above normal rainfall. In fact, we've also seen during that same time period, record-setting floods. The flood of February 2018 was a record-setting flood. It broke the 1947 record. We also have seen Lake Michigan break records. And we just finished our first year. 2020 actually came in with just slightly less than average rainfall. So some good news there in terms of wet weather. But we understand that in these low-lying areas, flooding is going to continue to be a problem. I want to take a moment to kind of highlight some of our ongoing and recent projects concerning flooding. The end of 19 and early 2020, we just completed the Crosstown Pond and Culvert Dredging Project. The project goal there was to restore our 1 to 2 year design capacity within the Crosstown Ponds and that connected culvert over to Excel Creek. 2021, we are now in our last year of a flood inundation and mapping project. This is a joint project between City of Kalamazoo, the USGS, which is United States Geological Survey, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the National Weather Service. The project highlights there are a complete bathymetric survey of the Kalamazoo River, Portage Creek, and the connecting water systems, tying that information back within our GIS system so that we can real-time model and monitor flooding situations as they arise. What that will give our community members is some advanced warning and understanding when floods are occurring, and we can provide parcel by parcel information in terms of inundation. Now, what do we have right now? We have what we call 100-year and 500-year flood overlays, and those are based on 2-foot inundations. So if you click on Zone AE, which is your 100-year flood zone, it shows you an area on the map. Now, every flood event has the potential to impact that. A 100-year flood event would mean everything in the area is 2 foot deep. So there's some confusion, I think, in the public eye in terms of when a flood happens, how big that flood is, and then how much inundation are experiencing on their property. This will give us an ability to communicate that in advance and to see it in real time. What's beneficial for the engineers with that project is that project will deliver a comprehensive 2D HEC-RAS model, which is essentially a hydraulic model of the river system that we can then utilize to kind of prove or disprove some of our flood diversion alternatives. We are working right now on a flood diversion alternative that would bypass high flows in Portage Creek through a micro tunnel. It would be a 9-foot diameter tunnel under the city and reconnect that back with the Kalamazoo River, as well as a gate complex on Portage Creek as it enters Kalamazoo River. So we're in the preliminary concept stage of that right now, but we need this HEC-RAS model to be able to then prove that to Army Corps engineers. The next step after that, if we were able to prove that model to Army Corps engineers, would be a cost-benefit ratio analysis. If that project is successful in that cost-benefit ratio analysis, we can move forward with funding applications. Another project I wanted to highlight, in partnership with the Allied Landfill OU1 and the cleanup that's getting ready to occur there, we are part of that design was to incorporate 7 new acres of wetland above the city of Kalamazoo. And the reason why that's so important and beneficial is that we are now trapping water and giving it a beneficial environmental space to be in before it gets to Kalamazoo. So that's 7 new acres of wetland that doesn't currently exist that we've been able to incorporate in the design for the remediation of OU1.
Thank you, Director Baker. That answer your question, Commissioner Hess? Any other questions for staff? Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yeah, just briefly, and Director Baker, you do a good job at translating the information, but I'm wondering, is there a place or are there plans on making this very simple for the community? So when you're not available to give these breakdowns, so the average person can take a look at the breakdown and be able to keep up and know what's happening. I was just wondering about that.
I'll ask for clarification just to verify that it's in response to the odor update. Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. As I stated in kind of the summary, one of the major components of all that work was, the submittal of our analytical results to the Michigan Department Department of Health and Human Services and local county health. That was just submitted to those folks on January 11th, and we haven't heard back yet. We haven't met with them yet, but a goal would be to get some next steps from those state agencies that we can then take back to the community. So that would be very beneficial. Another item that may help is just within the report there is 126 pages. Certainly there's a lot of information there, but the first several pages are pretty much just written in a way to kind of be able to read through. I know that's a lot. I anticipate that there will be further discussion and communication about this, and I would make myself available and our staff available to help continue with those dialogues as we continue to work through the projects.
Thank you, Director Baker. Any other questions at this point? Okay, thanks all. Clerk Borling, do you have a report? I'm sorry, Manager Risma.
Yeah, one other item. I want to ask Chief Coakley to just speak about tomorrow, and we have the inauguration tomorrow, and there's been rumors of protesting violence, and I just want him to briefly outline the plan that public safety has for tomorrow for our community.
Thank you, City Manager Richma. Again, hello, community. Just want you to know, as we know, there's been somewhat a very trying times right now in the 2020 and the election. As we move forward, and tomorrow we bring in a new government within our federal system. We know that there's been talk about local protest demonstrations, either in the capitals of all 50 states or locally. I want this community to know that job priority one is to maintain that Kalamazoo is safe. We have a strategic plan that is organized to address any and all situations that may arise with our mutual aid partners in this community on all three levels, federal, state, and the local. We will have a contingency of officers prepared to respond to anything that we need to do to mitigate a situation. We're looking and we'll keep our community safe in Kalamazoo. We will be blasting and being communicative to our community. The communication level will make sure we are using all avenues that we possibly need in communicating with the community on what's going on. And we'll be doing that before, as we're doing now. We are on all our social media posts or platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, reference what the situation is. Currently, I like to say that we do not have any intel about any demonstrations that will be affecting Kalamazoo. And we are continually talking with our analysts and the analysts on the federal, state, and local levels. We'll continue to blast out to the community situational information if anything's changing or if it's status quo. But we will do that before, during, and after. And we'll craft something afterwards just to give a debriefing. And I look forward to, after the debriefing, getting out into our community in some form to talk about a debriefing on how we could get better on the next time we have an event such as this that we have to prepare for in our community. So again, we have no information currently that will affect Kalamazoo, but we have a strategic plan in place just in case. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Coakley. City Manager Risma, anything else then?
That's it, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from you, Clerk Borling?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just have a brief report in the agenda packet. There were a couple of pieces of correspondence that are directed to the City Commission, one from Ms. Gwendolyn Hooker regarding a couple of topics that have been kind of up front, the questions about the drop program and about former Chief Carrie Ann Thomas. The second is from a City of Kalamazoo homeowner with questions and concerns about utility rates. Those are in the agenda packet, and they have also been circulated to commissioners. So I just wanted to note the inclusion of those in the agenda packet.
Thank you, Clerk Borland. I appreciate that. Next on the agenda is unfinished business, and we do have an item on the unfinished business agenda line. Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is going to be a tag team approach between Attorney Robinson and myself. So I believe last November, the commission discussed bringing back committee of the whole meetings, and also talked about possible work sessions. And it was left that the administration would come back with some recommendations. And what you have before you tonight is a recommendation. I'm just going to give a real highlight of what the recommendation is, and then the attorney can speak to how this impacts the rules and so forth. So we are proposing that the time before our business meetings, which is the first and third Mondays of the month, that time be set aside from 5 to 6:30 to have either a committee of the whole meeting or a work session or any other type of special meeting that's required. As was discussed a little bit ago, we're looking to begin the first meeting in February, highlighting and talking about the utility funds and proposed rates. This, I would characterize it as committee of the whole because there are agenda items that will be on that evening and the next business meeting related to the utility rates. And then from there we can, my thinking is have a committee of the whole, the first meeting of the month, and then a work session on the second meeting of the month. But there's flexibility to interchange and change things as we move forward. So I want to turn it over to the city attorney, and he can walk you through the actual resolution.
Thank you, City Manager Ritzma. As the commission probably already knows, there is a Rule 4A that addresses various types of meetings. There is what is called special meetings / work sessions, neighborhood meetings, and meetings of the committee of the whole. Since we've been, and when the discussion of what we were going to do in terms of going back to committee of the whole, obviously that's where I started my work. And then the desire for flexibility between special meetings or work sessions and meetings of the whole kind of caused me to rethink this. And we are also doing it on a trial basis. So what you have before you is a new Rule 4A. All the other meetings that we have, the rule is Rule 4 of the City Commission rules. What you have before you is Rule 4A, which does several things. First, it is a temporary rule. If you approve it tonight, it goes and remains in place through the end of July. Secondly, and that can be obviously changed. If you choose as we get into the summer months and you want to continue the experiment, that's obviously something you can change. Or if it's not working and you want to just get rid of it, you can obviously, you're not governed by that July 31st. If after a few meetings of this, he says, this isn't working, we want to try something else, you can get rid of it before July 31st. So, but that's the recommended 6-month trial period. Secondly, Rule 4, as it currently exists, remains in the rule book. Rule 4A has a clause that says in any conflict between Rule 4A and any other rules, particularly Rule 4, Rule 4A will govern. So during the trial period, Rule 4, while it continues to exist, is basically a dead letter. It gives up to Rule 4A. Now, what does Rule 4A do? Well, we have suspended neighborhood meetings for the period of time we're under COVID, and so those meetings will continue to be suspended during this period of trial. Outreach to the neighborhoods will be accomplished in different formats. Secondly, because of the desired flexibility expressed by both the city commission and the city administration, all of these meetings will be called committee of the whole meetings. But they're in this place, and if you have the rule before you, it's in the second paragraph. The order of items that you consider will be, public comments will be near the beginning of the meeting, again, because we anticipate two things: that we're going to continue to work under the COVID restrictions at least through the end of March. And that may be extended depending on what our public health numbers show. And we may be able to go back to for face-to-face or some modified approach beginning April, but we don't know enough at this point in terms of vaccinations and how the COVID infection rate is going to be proceeding in the next couple of months. Obviously, January and February are generally bad months for cold and flu season. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of months. But that said, what we're going to do is call them all committee of the whole meetings. And so there'll be public comments at the beginning. They will be limited to 2 minutes because we're going to be doing these things from 5 to 6:30 on the evening of a commission meeting. So while there will be an opportunity for people to give their comments, it's anticipated that these will be short comments because these are really work sessions for the commission for discussion items, as opposed to the taking up matters of action items like you did at this evening's meetings, where you could have a 4-minute speaking period to address issues. So public comments are limited, both in terms of because of the subject matter and because of the time limit of only an hour and a half. Then in each meeting, there is an opportunity for special agenda items, that is matters that need to be handled immediately in the form of a special meeting. That doesn't necessarily mean that there will be any items under that category, but it's there. Secondly, there's committee of the whole. That is an opportunity to discuss items on upcoming regular meetings. And then there's also work session. You could have one or any or all three of those things on any one particular committee of the whole meeting, in which you take up all of those issues. And then finally, after the work session, there's public comment, commissioners by comments from the commission, and then adjournment. It is also intended to be flexible in that it's not intended to prohibit other items in discussion on upcoming commission meetings. So there's some flexibility there, much like there is under the old or the committee of the whole meeting approach. I think that basically covers it in terms of giving you some flexibility. There is also some procedural matters. Usually it's often not uncommon for the mayor to step down in the committee of the whole, but that's being kept in place. And quite frankly, under Robert's rules, this commission operates often as a committee of the whole when they are in discussion of matters. I mean, technically, when an individual makes a motion, they are given supposedly the first opportunity to talk on the motion. They don't have to, but if the maker of the motion usually has first opportunity to talk, and then everybody else on the dais gets one opportunity to speak before commissioner may speak a second time. Again, that's not always followed to the T in terms of procedural process under the Robert's rules, because that's the whole point of a committee of the whole, is that you don't have those restraints on speakers. I think for the public, if you watch the most recent impeachment hearings, I watched a little bit of it. Aside from the the speeches that were being made by the individual representatives, pro and con for impeachment. Well, I also found interesting, and I hope people had an opportunity to notice the procedural aspect of how the meeting was being run. I don't think Speaker Pelosi was in the chair. I think it was the Speaker pro tem, but both sides went back and forth. There was one person who was kind of the floor manager, and they had allotted a period of time, and they said, I yield 1 minute or 30 seconds of my time to the representative from Pennsylvania. And that person would get up and they would speak for 30 minutes, or I'm sorry, 30 seconds. And the chair was pretty good about that. Your 30 seconds are done, get away from the podium. And then they would go the other side. And that floor manager would say, I yield a minute of my time to the representative from Virginia. And that person would get up and speak for a minute, and then they would be cut off. So it's very interesting in terms of, that's just a parliamentary process for the House of Representatives, but it's very similar to your rules in terms of Robert's rules, in that there are some restrictions on who can speak and how often they can speak and when they can speak, which are generally not followed by small groups, such as a 7-member board like the commission. So I only say that as background to give some folks a feel for the parliamentarian or the parliamentary procedures that have to be reflected in these rules. And while I'm not a registered parliamentarian, I've studied it for most of my life, going even back to elementary school. And so I think I'm fairly well versed in parliamentary procedures, and I kind of enjoy the study. So I've attempted to include that in these rules to some degree without bogging everybody down. And there will, of course, be meeting minutes kept pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, and they will be approved in the course of the usual business, as you continue to do for any work sessions or special meetings you have now. So I think that's the kind of the general overview. Again, it's temporary. It has a sunset that can be moved if you wish, and it basically gives the administration and the commission a great deal of flexibility in either taking up matters as a committee of the whole, as a work session, or as a special agenda item. The final thing is the resolution does amend the commission schedule of meetings that was adopted earlier. This now calls for the committee of the whole meetings for the first and third Mondays of the month from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Beginning February 1st through the end of July. So you don't have to make a separate amendment to amend your calendar of meetings.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Robinson. It is the rare, I believe, elementary school student who is interested in matters of parliamentary procedure. So I'm glad to have revealed that your roots are deep on that. City Manager, do you have anything else to add on this?
No, Your Honor.
So questions then for Attorney Robinson or Manager Ritzma. Commissioner Urban.
Well, this is not so much a question, but as you can tell, we're going into a period of experimentation, and for all of us who hope to be able to hear all of us when we speak to one another in a session that has all of us present at the same time. If we value the extra credibility and quantity of information we get in this way, we will be trying very hard to make this committee of the whole format work. And so I'm confident that if any one of us starts to be abusing the privilege of talking too much or hogging the dais, so to speak, that we will be willing to put a check on each other for the sake of making this work. I'm pretty confident that we won't have a problem because this is such a vast improvement over our present system, and I sure hope it works.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Any questions for staff specifically related to this resolution? So I don't see any questions from commissioners at this time. Obviously, after the motion is made, we'll have an opportunity for discussion. But the motion is the adoption of a resolution amending the city commission rules to govern committee of the whole meetings on a trial basis. So is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Cunningham. I'll say support for Commissioner Urban. I saw your hand. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, Clerk Borland, I'm sorry, Commissioner Knott.
I'll jump in. So I feel boxed in. When this conversation first came up in November, I was to some extent open to it, and I had some conversations with Commissioner Urban. And then in light of our unwillingness to tackle tough issues in the recent 6 weeks or so, I don't understand the point of committee of the whole. We don't do the work. We don't discuss matters that are difficult. I just heard Commissioner Urban say credibility and quality of information as it relates to being transparent to the public. But again, we had some real opportunities to be transparent and to have our credibility as commissioners probably lifted up, but we chose not to as a body. And now with Clyde's, the city attorney's report, I'm hearing that these meetings now are going to be structured so that they might be a special agenda item, it could be a work session, or it could be a committee of the whole. And that's why I feel boxed in, because I don't support committee of the whole right now. As my colleagues know, the consultants we were working with for healing have recently said, you know what, we can't do any healing because we need conflict resolution. So I'm not really sure how we come together on February 1st when we haven't done any conflict resolution, when we haven't addressed the matters that are really out there and looming. And for 2 meetings, I heard the vice mayor ask, how are we going to rebuild trust? And nobody has answered that question. So for me right now, I think that we have a lot of work to do before we even experiment with committee of the whole. If we have a topic for a work session, I'm more than willing to show up and to get that information, but I just don't understand what we're going to do for 90 minutes. And I mean, you all know that I haven't attended an admin meeting in the last several months because admin changed from doing kind of discussions and learning to staff reviewing the agenda. And I can do that on my own time, particularly because admin conflicts with a standing work commitment. And nobody asked me if Monday at 10:30 worked. And so I'm not interested if we don't have a work session on a special topic to review the agenda and then sit there and let people pontificate when you're not willing to actually address the tough challenges that are before us right now. Community trust is at an all-time low. City staff that have communicated to me and other of my colleagues, morale is at an all-time low. And again, here we are, and we're not addressing that issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Knott. Commissioner Urban?
Well, I would say that we're going to have a chance to address that issue in the course of these committee of the whole meetings. There's nothing to prevent us from tackling it, and with goodwill, we could do that. I'm not discouraged by Commissioner Knott's reluctance to embark on this. I think, well, she's basically raising the bar to say, listen, this has got to work. And so it's up to us, all 7 of us, to give it our best effort and to not kind of dig a hole for itself prematurely.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Other discussion on the motion. Commissioner Cunningham.
I guess my question would be, what conflict do we have amongst each other? And this is directed towards Commissioner Knott.
Commissioner Knott?
I don't know what the sensitivities around this are, but it's my understanding that our 3rd racial healing session was put off indefinitely because we haven't addressed some serious matters. And it was suggested by the consultants that we have a conflict resolution session because we have some real challenges amongst ourselves. So this is the information that I was given. It's not that I'm personally suggesting that we need conflict resolution, but that healing session is indefinitely postponed.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yeah, just to weigh in. So in terms of committee of the whole, I don't have issue, if that's how we're going to disseminate information, that's fine. To Commissioner Knott's point, and I felt that same way when I heard you say that, Commissioner Urban, about credibility, because while I don't disagree that a committee of the whole is another opportunity, when we have opportunities in front of us and we don't do anything with them, it's hard for people to feel like, okay, if you create something different's going to happen. And in a society where there's constantly issues, and whenever there's opportunities to address them, that's usually what happens. They don't get addressed, they get swept under the rug, and then you say, oh, here's this great new program that we can come up to address the issue. It never gets addressed, and then it just continues to go. And so to the point of you asking Commissioner Cunningham, whether or not, I don't know that there's necessarily direct conflict as if we can't get along, but I don't intend to beat a dead horse, but I didn't forget. I did ask those questions the last 2 meetings and nobody answered me. So if they can't get answered in a regular commission meeting, is moving it to a committee of the whole going to make that different? And if I can say that as a, sitting commissioner, I wonder how the rest of the community feels at the same time. So in terms of committee of the whole, again, I don't have any issues with that, but I do have issues with not directly dealing with what we directly need to deal with. And I don't know if anybody's thinking it's going to get easier, but it's not. It's not going to get any easier. It's not going to get any simpler. And we're going to have to hit this stuff head on. So yeah, I'll just leave it there for right now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Pradel.
Just have some initial thoughts on it. I think anytime there's a question about transparency, it's always best to err on the side of opening that door wider. And certainly we heard that last fall. And so, I'm just definitely willing to give it a try, see, how public feels about this and if that improves those sentiments. I think it gives the public one more glimpse into the questions we ask, the things we care about, how we feel about things, because typically it only happens here. And I think Commissioner Knott, you said this, I think a couple meetings ago, about how, people get a very small snapshot about what it's like to serve on this commission when we show up here for 3 or 4 hours. They don't see the phone calls, they don't see the questions we ask staff, the clarifying emails we ask, the questions we ask on behalf of residents and whatnot. And so, that is one more glimpse into the window of how we serve on behalf of the city. And I think that's important. I've emphasized this again as well, that I think, this will give city staff and city administration almost a full day back every 2 weeks to, focus on the issues that we have at hand and to tackle as well. And so it's always been a concern of mine on some instances where, I've sat in one of those small group meetings and it's just been me by myself with, 10 eyes, a set of eyes glaring at you, waiting for you to ask them questions. So, I think that is going to, serve the city a lot better in many ways as well, knowing that that's added time that our various leaders, whether it be directors or even the city manager, has more time to devote to the issues at hand. So for those reasons, I'm supportive of giving this a shot, giving it a try.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other discussion? So seeing none at this point, I just to clarify my position on this is that I think in some ways, we're talking about, 2 different topics, but interconnected topics at the moment. And this one is a change in method, which if we don't take advantage of it, Vice Mayor Griffin is right. I mean, it won't make any difference. You can move the furniture around, but if you don't act differently with each other, it's just a rearranging of furniture. So I think we're attempting here in some ways to give ourselves more time to be together as a commission, and maybe time that is not necessarily always with a packed agenda, so there's more open time for discussion. I think it's been, not only has it been, you know, a uniquely challenging time for all of us in the last, you know, year plus now, but we've had, just like everyone else, much less opportunity to spend time together to discuss things of import. And I think that shows. And so I'm hoping that although, you know, we use the language work session, and sometimes those work sessions are driven by long staff presentations on topics. And I know coming up on February 1st, we do have an important topic we need to hear about. And sometimes that is some of the work that we did in our smaller groups, is here's some more details on things like water sewer rates and investments. But outside of that, this will be our meeting, and this will be an opportunity for us to have a broader, more free-form discussion on topics of import to all of us, so that I'm hoping all of us will have an opportunity to be heard and to hear. So that's an important thing to me. I hadn't seen any other discussions, so Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes. We'll be operating under new rules as described by Attorney Robinson. At this time, we'll hear from commissioners who wish to make comments. Commissioner Urban.
Oh, I'm first again. Well, I'm glad to see that we were able to grant the applications for a pilot and those two projects that were in the consent agenda. I think that there was perhaps some hope that someone would ask that those items be moved to the regular agenda, but they weren't. We could have had a more lengthy discussion on that issue, but we did hear pretty well, I think, a cross section of views about that particular development on Lake Street and Stockbridge. I just want to remind people that a project was a low-income housing project sponsored by the Lift Foundation. The Lift Foundation is the organization that is longstanding in Kalamazoo and has a wonderful reputation for doing what it's set out to do. I think that the point I want to really clarify is that property is not was not part of any NFP2 expansion at the time the site plan review was approved. In fact, right now it's not an active, not actively being considered at all, is my understanding. From what I can see of the plans there, a good deal of open land and wooded area is going to still remain in that site. In fact, it might be a lot more appealing to use by the public after this thing is done than it is now. I've driven by it many times, and that wooded section is great for owls and great for mice, but it's not great for people. It's just really overgrown. In any case, this whole project is definitely in the direction that we said we wanted to go when we approved our master plan, which is to increase the supply and the availability of low-income housing throughout Kalamazoo. And if we're serious about doing that, when we have an opportunity to act on it, we should do so. So I would be very happy to see that resolution was passed on the consent agenda. So I just feel I had to say that.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Commissioner Cunningham.
All right. I've been having a lot of instability with my internet, so start doing this if I start going in and out. I first want to just highlight, with me not intending to run again this year, there's a lot of laughs for me. This is my last time to have the opportunity to approve the budget for the city of Kalamazoo. And so, I take great honor, great pride in that. And I even love the challenges that come along with it and the changes that I've seen over the years, just highlighting the foundation for excellence again, and the opportunity that it has afforded us. Because I can remember in 2015, the only conversation we had was, what are we going to cut and how are we going to cut it and when will it be cut? And so I am appreciative of that, especially as we go through this pandemic, something that wasn't foreseen in our future and we couldn't have planned for, or I guess we could have tried to, but in reality, it still wouldn't have worked. And so this has afforded us some opportunity that maybe other communities our size wouldn't otherwise have. So once again, thank you as it pertains to that. The other piece was, I know that we talk about the odor. We had a conversation today about the odor in the community. And so I've been, I've been a staunch advocate because I'm a lifetime resident of the east side of Kalamazoo for the most part. And I've noticed that there may be some other culprits involved. So I'm looking into that, working very closely with Director Baker. And I hope that within this next year, we have a lot of those issues resolved as soon as possible. And then last, I just wanted to point this conversation to Commissioner Knott and Vice Mayor Griffin as it pertains to the concern of what our decision was made towards as a body. Well, the decision was made towards City Manager Ritzma. I just advise, come up with an alternative or what kind of conversation, or if there's some type of different conversation that you want to have, we can put it on the next week's agenda. We can change anything. So if there is feelings that there should have been deeper dialogue, if there's feelings that there should have been a different response, you can present those issues and you can motion and second it, and we will all have to vote on it. So I just want to, take the opportunity to acknowledge, you guys have been mentioning this for the last couple of weeks, and I stand with you. There's not a us versus them. I know that there was a statement around, whatever contention, and that we couldn't move forward with the opportunity that we had. But I still think that, that's just their personal opinion. You're right. I think we all are in agreement that trust is at an all-time low with the community. And so if you feel that it's necessary, I would just advise, take this opportunity to make a motion in our next meeting, and or ask that this be put on the agenda for our next meeting and we can have deeper dialogue about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham. Commissioner Knott?
Yeah, thank you. So I think I'll just quickly respond maybe to Commissioner Cunningham, but also circling back to Commissioner Urban, suggesting that my comments were raising us, I don't remember the exact words, raising the stakes, something like that. For all of my colleagues, just out of awareness, it was whatever that meeting was that the resolution hit our inboxes at 6 p.m. So that was on a Monday. 2 days prior on a Saturday, sometime Saturday evening, probably between 6 and 7, 6 and 8, Amy and I were cooking dinner. Commissioner Urban and I had a phone conversation where we spent, 45 minutes or so just kind of catching up. It was the first time we had a one-on-one in some time. And at no point during that conversation did Commissioner Urban ever suggest that he was going to be presenting a resolution that, again, I found out about Monday evening when it hit my email box at 6 o'clock. I don't know about you all, but when you work in politics, you don't have a 9 to 5 job. I am constantly working, and the 6 o'clock hour is where I kind of do a quick pivot, turning off my 9 to 5, if you will, job, to then figuring out what do I need to be prepared for city commission, and then hopefully grabbing a bite to eat. So I saw that resolution and was stunned by it, and really thought that we would have had some conversations. So to Commissioner Cunningham's points, I had had a conversation with the mayor and some other folks that I was hoping that that evening we would put some steps in place so that we could do an investigation. And I'm not talking about hiring a contractor and putting it out for bid. I'm talking about us doing an investigation, talking to Chief Carrie Ann Thomas, the former chief, talking to the current chief, talking to the director of HR, getting a lawyer so that we knew all the facts, because the only person that we had heard from was the city manager and the report from MLive. That's it. And we didn't have an opportunity because there was the resolution, no discussion, and bam, it was voted on. And I was stunned. I didn't say anything because I couldn't believe how quickly things moved. I was stunned. So that is my recommendation. I want an opportunity to do an investigation. And I've said that now for the last couple of weeks in my one-on-ones with different commissioners. And if we're right now talking about committee of the whole and suggested topics, may I put forth how we hire and fire director level positions, and how we provide hiring bonuses as well as retention bonuses. I don't really care about, what my preference is knowing whether we have a policy on the books that allows the city manager to provide bonuses. And if that policy makes it so that bonuses, whether it's a hiring bonus or a retention bonus, is provided equitably across the board and not just discretion of the city manager. These are topics that I'd like to discuss at our next committee of the whole or in a couple of meetings if we're already booked for the first. And to end on a positive note, I just want to remind everybody that today is the last day that a woman has never been the Vice President of the United States. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Thank you.
Appreciate you raising that up, Commissioner Knott. Commissioner Pradel.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well out there. I wanted to make sure I could not hear. I froze up at the beginning of the meeting, so I was present here tonight, and I am in the city of Kalamazoo, just in case that needs to be said for the record with Clerk Borling. Just wanted to start off recognizing if you drive by City Hall tonight, you'll see that City Hall is lit in amber lights, which is a nationwide, it's in honor of a nationwide night of remembrance for the 400,000 people who died nationwide related to COVID. Remembering that each one of those individuals is a life with a family and with loved ones. And just in our county alone, there's been 285 individuals who have lost their lives during the pandemic, just in our county here alone. And so, I hope people just kind of take some pause tonight and thinking of how our city hall is lit, and remember that this isn't over yet, and we still need to be incredibly cautious. And just because there are 12 million people nationwide who've had 1 or 2 vaccines, we're far from over. And I just hope people continue to be careful and cautious. Mr. Mayor, we're glad to see you're back here tonight. You seem to have your regular pep to your step, and I'm amazed that you continue to do work throughout your recovery period, but we're glad you're back and healthy and safe as well. So just wanted to lift that up as well. If you want to see a picture of it, if you can't drive by on our city's Facebook page tonight, you can see a picture of the front of City Hall there as well. Want to take an opportunity. It wasn't enough time to put together a resolution to honor Betty Lee Ongley, although she is a Portage resident. It's important to note she was the very first female mayor in the entire state of Michigan. She's somebody that I've grown to really look up to and honor and appreciate, and she's taught me so much in my life about public service. And she is turning 95 years old next week. And the American Red Cross, which is an organization that does work throughout our region, including the city of Kalamazoo. The reason I'm mentioning her tonight is that she's given not only to the city of Portage, but to our community, the city of Kalamazoo, and has been a volunteer of the American Red Cross for 70 years. If you just let that process for a minute, 70 years. So the American Red Cross is doing quite a bit to honor her legacy as a volunteer with that organization here in the next week or so. And so I encourage people to check that out and support those events and honor the Honorable Betty Lee Ungley. Also wanted to just remind everybody again, next week we did have somebody who reached out as an anonymous homeowner by email this week with some concerns about the continued increase in rates on water and waste utility. And, it's a really valid question, but there's a lot going on and there's a lot that we need to accomplish as a city to get ourselves at a level that we can be and continue to be proud of the health and safety of our water and sewer systems. And so next week we have a presentation on that, or next time we meet, we have a presentation on that. So I hope people can be a part of that. And then just wanted to take a pause for a second just to celebrate something as well. You look at our agenda tonight, you can see it very much alive and well that housing is a priority in the city of Kalamazoo. Maybe not as fast as we'd like to make it. Maybe, there are many people who wish we could do more or move faster. But man, you look at that agenda tonight and it is alive and well. And I've said this a number of times that I don't think it's a coincidence that an issue that the community cares so deeply about, that we have a mayor who has devoted his life to affordable housing. And we have a vice mayor who has devoted much of her life's advocacy and work to housing in our community. And so just remember that, and just remember that this commission and this city administration is keeping that eye on the prize and knowing that that is a priority and a need in our community and that we can do better and that we will continue to do better. But if you look at that agenda tonight, it's just like completely lit with housing is a priority. And so I really appreciate that we continue to keep our foot on the gas with that. But I also wanted to take a minute just to say something that I don't think I've probably done a good enough job of saying something about, but also, I think many people could do more of recognizing and shining some light on, kind of shining some light back on the mayor. There's some number of people who said some pretty critical things about the mayor tonight, about how he has some sort of secret agenda or, somehow is, puppeteering, is puppet mastering things behind the scenes to somehow support and lift up housing at how he envisions it. But most of the things that he was associated with tonight, he's done as a volunteer on top of his daytime job, on top of being a mayor. And I just asked the question, what do you think that a man who's volunteering his time and has devoted his life to this issue has as a secret agenda? I don't see it personally. If you take and shed the title of mayor aside, if you just put a stop in your life right now, Mr. Mayor, you will be known as probably one of the most influential figures that has transformed housing and affordable housing for people who need it in this community, probably more than anybody in our city's history. So, I think there's a lot of reason to be critical at times about maybe how things are done or how people may approach things or whatnot, but you're not going to find another human being in this city who's done more to champion and move forward affordable housing in this community than the mayor of this city. So I just wanted to lift that up and say that. And thank you, sir, for all that you've done to move that forward over the years.
Thank you very much for your kind comments, Commissioner Pradel. I appreciate that. Commissioner Hess.
Thank you, Chris, for that. That was well said, very well said, and I agree. Brian Chesky of Airbnb said, culture is something shared. Culture is simply a shared way of doing something with passion. It's clear to me from our discussions this evening and from everything that's happening in this community that the culture we seek here in Kalamazoo is one of collaboration, one of communication, and one of working together toward the greater good. So tonight, in a spirit of gratitude, I have so much in gratitude to give for the MLK events in this community, for the Truth and Racial Healing events, and the Day of Racial Healing today that have happened. I'm grateful for tonight's discussions and conclusions and brutal honesty. I'm grateful for the public recognition of our youth this evening. That is one of the most inspiring things that we can do, is leave this year with a recognition of our youth and their inspiration to me. The extensive 126-page report on the odor task force from graphics packaging and the wastewater treatment plant that has taken months to create, and we're going to get these on a regular basis. And to know that people are working on a problem that was brought forth and has been being brought forth, and that something is being done about that. I have gratitude for our Department of Public Services, who keeps our streets safe. Thank you so much for being out there, and I'm looking forward to doing a ride along on a snowplow. I'm also grateful for our Department of Public Safety and your increased commitment to communication with our community. I'm grateful for all educators. I'm grateful for all educators and those who seek education in this town. It was John Maxwell who said, "A great idea is the result of several good ideas." I believe several good ideas only come in a diverse community such as ours, and therefore I remain optimistic about our ability to work toward healing and justice. I have one announcement that came out of the Northside Ministerial Alliance today. And so on Thursday, this Thursday, January 21st, from 6:30 to 8 p.m., there will be a COVID-19 vaccine Q&A forum provided by WMed and the Northside Alliance Partnership. It will stream live on Mount Zion Baptist Church on YouTube or Facebook. And lastly, to Ms. Coker, who called in, the city has released a statement regarding the city's employees' participation at the Capitol on January 6th, and it reads as follows. There have been inquiries by local citizens questioning if any KDPS or other city employees were engaged in the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. To date, the city administration has no information and no reason to believe that any city employee was engaged in any criminal behavior in our nation's capital on January 6th. If evidence becomes available to the contrary, the city will fully cooperate with authorities who are investigating the incident. I hope that answers your question. And to my colleagues on the commission, I respect you greatly, and I look forward to working together with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hess. Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes, I want to start off by congratulating all of the youth recipients of the awards earlier in this evening's meeting. Congratulations to you all once again. I want to address Gwendolyn Hooker sent in some correspondence, and just to acknowledge a piece of that was about the DROP program. And so I was not on the commission when we approved the DROP program coming into play. My feedback on that is, since the commission does not have necessarily a direct say-so in terms of who's hired in at KDPS, and we've had extensive conversations in regards to hiring and employment and so on and so forth. If there's going to be a decision to continue to keep someone on after their retirement, and it comes to this commission, I feel like the commission should have more of an more evaluation into the employment of said officer, because who's making the decision as to whether or not they should continue? Is that best for the community? Is that something that's being made, a decision that's being made that's siloed off? So that's my feedback on the DROP program. And so moving forward, that's what I would like to see happen. And in terms of accountability and such, what Commissioner Knott said, I probably couldn't have said it any better with respects to how we move forward. Commissioner Cunningham, while I appreciate you putting the onus back on myself and Commissioner Knott to come up with something, I think I was at least pretty clear about having conversation. And so I asked for those who didn't want to have conversation, what your plan was moving forward and how we're going to build trust for the community. So I still am asking that question as a whole, what we're going to do moving forward. And so since we can't seem to come up with that here, I would ask that that be on our first committee of the whole. what we're going to do moving forward, because there's too much important work that's going to be done, specifically around anti-racism and such like that. If you can't deal with accountability issues, I don't know how we're going to push forward being an anti-racist city when those very difficult things are going to come in front of us. So I would like to address that sooner than later, as well as the other things that Commissioner Knott raised up. And that concludes my addressing of Gwendolyn Hooker's correspondence to us. And so my comments, we did see a lot of housing come through, and it's so needed. And it's very important that we get these projects coming up. But I do have to let the community know and let those at the tables who are making these decisions and on these boards know that we have a wealth gap, we have a home ownership gap, and every last one of these projects had nothing to do with home ownership. And so we still need to be very mindful of that as we move forward. While it's necessary, we have to be mindful of home ownership opportunities. And I also I think it might have been in 2019, I had the pleasure of attending an Ableism 101 and 102 training at the Disability Network. For anyone who has not had a chance to attend that training, I advise you to. But there have been some opportunities that we need to take as a city to make our community more accessible to our disabled community. And I look forward to a conversation we'll be having, I believe it's next week, with Leatrice Fullerton, who is the program coordinator and community outreach director at the Disability Network, and seeing how we can move forward and be inclusive for everyone in our community. And I think that might be all that I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Griffin. Commissioner Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor, and my apologies for the interruption of our normal routine. I'd like to motion that in our next public meeting, we have 2 agenda items, one around accountability, and then 2 around the investigation of the conflict or situation involving our city manager and the releasing of our previous city chief.
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham. Is there support for that motion?
I'll support it.
Supported by, well, Commissioner Urban's hand went up first, so supported by Commissioner Urban. Any other discussion? All right, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
And Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. You're set, Commissioner Cunningham? All right. So, hey, I just want to say a few things. A couple of them I'm always not certain about exactly how to talk about, but because it's not one of my most favorite things to talk about me, but I just wanted to talk about a little bit about housing issues in Kalamazoo. And Kalamazoo, you know, if you're interested in something in Kalamazoo, I mean, it's not a huge town, and if you are interested and are involved in boards and committees, it's likely that you are going to wear several hats. And I know many of us do here on the commission are also involved in other community issues that we're and very involved in nonprofits, that sort of thing, of things that we care a great deal about. So just some clarification, I guess, from a macro level is that I am a builder. I've been a builder almost my whole life. I'm a licensed builder. One of my passions in life is having a safe, decent place for people to live. I've had experience myself personally with not having a place to live and with my family, and having a family member, my brother, actually, my dear, wonderful brother, who allowed my entire family to move in with them when we had no place to go. And not only that personal experience, but I've been a lucky person that enabled to manifest housing for myself and my family. I had skills about construction and building, and that allowed me the opportunity to create a space for myself. And out of all that work and being very involved in the neighborhood level, I've spent multiple decades now being involved in nonprofit undertakings, whether it's the Public Housing Commission or the Lift Foundation, related to developing affordable housing. And along those lines, I've been very involved in the Lift Foundation. It is not my nonprofit. It is not a nonprofit I run. I'm on the board, just like the board of any other nonprofit in the city of Kalamazoo that needs to have board members. And the Lift Foundation was started way back before I was thinking about being on boards in 1966 here in Kalamazoo. And I am confident that the Lift Foundation will continue with an ever-changing quality board membership for many, many decades in the future, past when I'm on the Lift board. So just to get a little more particular about that, and this is open to anybody. I mean, there is no lock on the creating of affordable housing and how you can go about doing that. There's lots of opportunities, whether you're talking about home ownership, whether you're talking about multifamily housing, decent rentals, great need in all those areas. And so what do I do with a lot of my free time? Well, I cogitate on projects. I drive around town. I look at lots. I cold call people. I sit in parking lots. I wait for people to show up late at night or on Saturdays or catch them on Sunday afternoons when I come up with some sort of a harebrained idea that I talk to the Lift board about, like moving more quickly by perhaps purchasing something existing like a motel. But at the end of the day, that is a nonprofit driven, board driven undertaking. I do not gain any financial benefit from my participation in any of that. This is a volunteer activity, and the benefit that I get is the personal satisfaction. And I guess I can't be prevented from getting that, of being part of creating something for someone else that's bigger than myself. And so if that's selfish, that's selfish, but that's how I benefit in this community as it relates to housing, is that I'm personally satisfied to see that an individual who did not have a safe, decent place to call home now has such a place and can check that box and go on and aspire to other dreams that they have for their life. As it relates specifically to the site on Stockbridge, I don't want to belabor that point too much, but I just want to be clear that the development piece on that property is not occurring in wetlands. There will be no construction in the wetland area. There is the construction portion is intended to occur on the area of that property that is also not floodplain designated as well. And the portion of it, of the property that is designated as floodplain, or more particularly wetlands, is highly regulated, and we intend, if nothing else, to preserve that and make it more available for passive community use, to experience the benefit of having a portion of the neighborhood that is not developed. So that is our full intention and commitment from the Lift side. I'm just representing the Lift desire as it relates to that particular site. So just to close this out this evening, and I think it's very important that we can have discussions in areas that we may not totally agree, and I appreciate that. And that does not in any way diminish to me the fact that we all care about this community and might think about it in a little bit different way, but are going to further continue to have important discussions about how we can bring, affect positive change together. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. So today in Washington, D.C., as Commissioner Pradel mentioned, there was remembrance for the over 400,000 people whose lives have been taken by COVID here in the United States. And President-elect Biden and our Vice President-elect Harris attended this remembrance. It was a solemn event, and I'm so appreciative that they recognized that and attended that. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be back at work doing the work that I love here in the city of Kalamazoo. My wife and I both tested positive for COVID. I will never live down the fact that I'm probably the one that gave it to her. Sorry, sweetie, but we have come through this, and we are both feeling much better. So our quarantines are over. We both went to work today, and I can't tell you how blessed I feel about that. I want to thank everyone who reached out to us with best wishes, and I want to communicate my support to all who have lost loved ones or who are dealing with symptoms themselves. And there are more people in the community than we even recognize, but we even have people who are on the staff of the City of Kalamazoo here who are with us this meeting tonight who have family members who are very, very ill. So I just want to make sure that I'm communicating to them that my support goes out to you and your family members. So here we are, on the day after Remember the Life of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And we're also on the eve of one of the most important events that happens in our collective history together, and that's Inauguration Day. And this is when we demonstrate our universal commitment to the peaceful transition of power in this country. This day celebrates our commitment to working together and yet accepting decisions made at the ballot box that may not coincide with our personal beliefs and values. It is a rare, precious, and valuable agreement we share, and one that was threatened like never before just days ago. We are in a time of angry and hateful language and actions, a focus on division that is driven by algorithms that tap into our lowest human inclinations, and a national obsession that highlights every disagreement and magnifies it. What do we stand for in Kalamazoo? Our every post or decision to deny goodwill in each other will not help. We must make a personal choice. I believe that in Kalamazoo, the vast majority of us want the best for each other. We want safe neighborhoods and economic security and good health, an environment where hopes and dreams can live and grow, where the opportunity to flourish is available to everyone. At this historical moment, we, each of us, need to make a commitment in our own hearts to intentionally put into the world a brave working doctrine that what we do each day and how we treat each other makes the difference, all the difference. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, peace is not merely a distant goal we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. Keep your hearts open. Love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.